are so many wonderful countries around the world. Brazil, India, China. In any case, this time we chose Tajikistan, because this is where the roof of the world is located. The poetic name of the Pamir Mountains, the roof of the world, is attributed to Marco Polo. Nepal's residents would probably disagree, but we will respect the classics. The etymology of this toponym is lost in such hoary antiquity that nowadays nobody would be able to say precisely who and when gave these uplands their name. The Arabs called it Pamir or Pamir. As always, the Hindus offered a most romantic hypothesis. According to them, the mystical Mount Meru is hidden in the Pamir Mountains. Many Afghan tribes refer to the Pamir as Pamir. Mikr or Mithra is the god of the sun of ancient Iranians. And thus the word Pamir designates the mountainous country from behind which the sun ascends. This is the Vazob River. It flows into the Kafinigan River. From Arabic, the word kafir means infidel. Nigon means a location. So we are heading to a place where infidels hide. Thanks God we don't have to hide. Today, Tajikistan is a rule of law secular state, and it is quite friendly towards foreigners. I would even say rather respectful, as on the one hand, it's a local centuries-old law of hospitality, and on the other hand, tourists significantly contribute to Tajikistan's GDP. But let's get back to the Vazob River. In the 4th century BC, a large ancient city appeared on its banks. It was still there during the Bactria times, successfully survived the Persian conquest, the invasion of Alexander the Great, and the mysterious Torka Hephthalites. It was in its prime in the Kushan Empire and was destroyed only in the 4th century AD. In 661, Mavaranagro was invaded by the troops of Caliph Umayyad Muawi, after which Islam gradually replaced Zoroastrianism and Greek Buddhism in the region. In the Arabic chronicles, Dushanbe was first mentioned in the 7th century AD as a small settlement where on Mondays they arranged market. Dushanbe means exactly that, Monday. At present, Dushanbe is a beautiful modern city with a 1 million population and developed light, processing, food and construction industries. In Dushanbe there are many hotels for any taste and wallet. For 300 somoni, you can actually get a decent room. At 10 a.m. we have a meeting at the Ministry of Ecology. We need to hurry up. The main thing is not to forget anything. Departing from Almaty, we forgot the cameras and the laptop. We are in the Environmental Protection Committee of the Republic of Tajikistan. The weather today is so-so, but we hope that everything will change in the mountains. We got lucky, as we were allowed to attend a seminar on snow leopard preservation. The representatives of the authorized Nature Protection State Agency, scientists, hunting specialists working on the ground, and ecotourism organizers are in this working meeting aimed to preserve snow leopard ecosystems. All of them are key conservation stakeholders. We are regularly monitoring the progress of works under this project. In my opinion, the project is performing quite well. A lot of work has been done, especially regarding the monitoring of snow leopard and its fodder base. Literally 2 days ago, our young scientists went into the field to do a markhor population count. It's one of the types of prey that snow leopards feed on. The project to preserve snow leopard in Tajikistan has commenced a long time ago, and the country can be proud of its outcomes already. There are indicators which tell us exactly what's going on. Let my colleagues correct me if I'm wrong. At present, certain snow leopards live up to old age. There are 25 registered cases when, not being able to hunt down their food in the wild nature, weak snow leopards attacked animal sheds and cattle herds. To a varying degree, some wild species follow a certain behavioral stereotype, which scientists call synanthropy. For example, house mice have brought their ability to live near humans to perfection. Jackals and wolves are relatively synanthropic, as, despite a certain level of risk of being shot, they still often attack domestic animals. Snow leopards' level of synanthropy is 0. Leopards always avoid people. A young, healthy animal hunts exclusively wild animals. Only severe hunger or illness can force a snow leopard approach humans. In the Transili Alatau foothills near Almaty, only 2 such cases were registered in the course of 30 years. Both animals were very old and exhausted, with blunt teeth. One of them got into a cowshed, knocked down the cow, but couldn't even kill it. The second one just came to the hunting checkpoint, lay down near the lamb shed and died. An attack on livestock by a snow leopard is nothing like a shrewd special operation executed by a wolfpack. It's not a brazen theft of chickens by jackals. It's an act of despair, a hunger suicide. The 25 recorded cases of old snow leopards approaching human dwellings may serve as indicator of their increased population. If the level of poaching has decreased and the feed base has expanded, the number of senior snow leopards should have increased accordingly. Compensation for lost livestock is an important element of the snow leopard conservation project. The government fully reimburses farmers for their animals killed by leopards. The question is what to do with such snow leopards. If an animal is young and healthy, the answer is clear. The best thing to do is to release it back into the wild. In certain places of its former habitat, there are no leopards today, and it would be wise to try to reintroduce them. For example, under an agreement with Russia, 2 young leopards were set free in the Sayana-Shushinsky Nature Reserve. Based on the monitoring data, both of them have perfectly adapted there. Yet, if an animal is old or sick, does it make sense to release it back into nature? Scientists are still debating about it. Some of them propose to set up a rehabilitation center, like a nursing home, for old and sick animals. This way, tourists would pay to see snow leopards with their own eyes, and the money would cover the food of the animals and staff salaries. This idea is still under discussion. Going to a special authorized state agency dealing with conservation is the best way to start our acquaintance with the nature of Tajikistan. Welcome to the State Environment Protection Committee. The National Environmental Action Center has agreed to take our film crew on a mission. We want to design our route in such a way so as to show our audience as many natural beauties and historical attractions of Tajikistan as possible. From here to the Dashti Jum Reserve, and from there to Badakhshan. Then along the Panj River up to the Ali Chur. Then we will follow the Vakan corridor and cross this territory to Baljuvan. For Kazakhstanis, the word Vakan corridor and Markur sound like passwords to the world of discoveries and adventures full of harsh romance. In recent years, we've been doing regular wild animal counts. They show the increasing rare and endangered species populations. The number of Pamir or Joly has tripled. The number of Markur has grown 3.5 times. The number of other animals has also increased, especially of snow leopard. Animal population dynamics, especially rare species, indicate how effective conservation efforts are. To know how many new animals have appeared, they need to be reliably counted. The experience of many countries shows that it's a hard task to accomplish. Special organizational measures and well-equipped teams of competent researchers are necessary, capable of working in extreme conditions and gathering credible information. Over the past 30 years, the number of mountain-hoofed animals has increased 20 times. Markur population up to 3,500 heads, Siberian ibex up to 4,500 heads, and that of Joly up to 27,000. This fact suggests that the decisions taken by the government and the Environmental Protection Committee are effective and facilitate protection and population growth of rare species. There was time when Markur was on the verge of extinction. Its protection in remote highlands required significant financial and enforcement means that young Tajikistan could not afford. The government had to find a way to convince rural residents to side with professional conservationists. That meant creating conditions for Markur protection beneficial to local communities themselves. People tend not to appreciate resources not bringing them any good. Speaking of Markurs, we did several aerial counts in 1989-1990. The situation was simply deplorable. All across the Dashti Jum Reserve, and this is its natural habitat, we were able to locate only 120 animals. Let's round it up to 150. Still, it was nothing for such a vast area. Today, thanks to protection measures, thanks to limited hunting, thanks to income generation, the locals understand that they can earn much more protecting Markurs than just by killing them for food. At present, Markur population amounts to about 3,000 heads, and this is the last year's figure. We are currently doing this year's count and don't know exactly yet. It might very well be 3,500. How about that? The locals would not only hunt Markurs, but also deprive them of their main feed base, cutting down winter fat for fuel. Hunting and conservation organizations have set up free distribution of coal in areas inhabited by Markurs. The increase in the number of snow leopards has to do with its game species. According to experts, at present, about 280-300 snow leopards live on Tajikistan's territory. Within the forthcoming trip, we intend to visit several hunting farms to see with our own eyes how hunting tourism affects the populations of mountain ungulates. Occupying the top of the food pyramid, the number of snow leopards demonstrates the overall condition of the ecosystem as a whole. In 1998-1999, I worked as the first deputy minister. I set up a survey-based snow leopard counting system in Tajikistan. So we got that number, 180, that way. A few years later, our Academy of Sciences did its own assessment and came out with a similar figure, about 200-230 heads. Today this figure is more or less official, although in my opinion in current conditions its population should be somewhere close to 450-500. There are biological species which are called flagship species. They are in the center of the international community's attention, they make movies about them and allocate grants for studying them. Tourists are keen on seeing them. Tajikistan is remarkably rich in such species, so the country is actively involved in international conservation efforts. We shouldn't forget about global collaborations which Tajikistan has been pursuing with such organizations as the Global Environment Facility and UNDP. They are also working on the same issues. For example, preservation of snow leopard ecosystems and its game species. The working meetings and seminars in Dushanbe are over, and it's time for us to head to the mountains. Before leaving, we have a few free hours to roam the national capital. Somewhere on the roof of the world, in Kukistani Badakhshan region, snowstorms are raging and snow is 1 meter deep. Here in the Hisar Valley, almond and wild pistachio trees are in full bloom. We are heading to the memorial of Ismail Samani, the founder of the Samanid state that existed on the territory of modern Tajikistan in the 9th-10th centuries AD. Ismail Samani's father, Ahmad ibn Asad, was the emir of Bukhara. In 875, Abbasid Caliph al-Mutamid gave the entire Mabaranakhr under the Samanids' control. After Asad's death, his eldest son Nasr became the emir, and his brother Ismail was appointed viceroy of Bukhara. It sometimes happens so that not always the eldest becomes the most successful, and in 888, Ismail Samani defeated his brother in a brutal battle. Poor Nasr was captured and was awaiting execution. But Ismail extended royal honors to Nasr and formally left him in the position of Mabaranakhr's emir, although overtook all real power. He proved to be not only a skilled commander, but also a brilliant diplomat. Formally maintaining his loyalty to the Caliph, effectively he achieved real independence from the Caliphate. At the same time, he established good allied relations with his nomadic neighbors. As a Tajik, Ismail Samani made Dari Farsi, literary Tajik language, the state language, and thus preserved the ethnic identity of the indigenous peoples living on the territory of present-day Tajikistan. The Samanid Empire flourished for more than 100 years. It was the golden age of urban development, arts, science and crafts. It was the Samanid era that gave the world such names as Rudaki, Ferdowsi, Al-Biruni and Ibn Sina. Unfortunately, as is often the case, the offspring of prominent personalities are not always able to bear the burden of power left to them by their ancestors. Ismail Samani's children and grandchildren got embroiled in intestinal feuds, with the military playing the decisive role. A slave merchant once bought a slave, a Turkic boy named Alp Tegin. The boy appeared smart and the merchant resold him to the Samanid Guard military school. After 30 years, Alp Tegin took the post of the Guard commander. In 999, he overthrew the Samanid ruler Mansur, enthroned his young brother Abd al-Malik, and ruled Bukhara on his behalf. Guardsmen changing emirs meant only one thing: that the state became weak and it was time to attack it. The Bukhara's nomadic neighbors took advantage of the situation. The Karakhanids conquered almost all of Mabaranakhr up to the Zarafshan River. Leading his remaining Guard fellows, Alp Tegin retreated to the cities of Balkh and Ghazni. There, he created his own Ghaznavid dynasty and state. It achieved its greatest prosperity under his son Mahmud Ghaznavi. Tajikistan's history is so intricate and exciting that you can talk about it and listen to indefinitely. But it's time for us to head out. Hisravshok Shermatov, head of the National Environmental Action Center, is leading the expedition. He has a lot of striking stories about his expeditionary experience, but doesn't like to talk on camera. Bedil Kamidov works at the National Environmental Action Center. There's not a single village where he doesn't have a friend or an acquaintance. Abdurrahman Rasulov also works in the center and is an experienced field specialist. There is no such situation which he will not find a way out of. Orkan Shaymukhanbetov, director of Kazakhstan Wildlife Foundation, is a frequent guest of our program. Orkan has long mastered the camera and is acting as a part-time second operator. Oruzbek Temsizov is our senior operator and the most cheerful member of the expedition. And this is Maxim Levitin, our host and part-time cameraman. He seems to have a bit of a wary look, though. The Katlon tunnel reduces the way from Dushanbe to Katlon region by more than 100 kilometers, but it's not its main advantage. Before its construction, all vehicles had to cross the Karatigin Ridge via the high mountain pass of Zhomagzak, which was a tough job, especially in winter. The road is advancing the Vaksh River, originating in the Pamir. It flows through a narrow rocky valley and descends into the fertile Vaksh Valley, breaking into branches and supplies water for irrigation. The best location to enjoy the view of the Nurak Reservoir. Two largest hydropower plants in Central Asia are located on the Vaksh River, Nurak and Rogun HPPs. In 1972, they built the Nurak Reservoir with an area of 98 square kilometers. The water from it is used to irrigate 1 million hectares of fertile land. In the same 1972, the Nurak HPP was put into operation. Initially, it produced 3,015 megawatts of power, and after reconstruction, it grew up to 3,300. The design capacity of the Rogun HPP is even more, 3,600 megawatts. On the reservoir's shore, there is an observation deck and a bunch of tiny diners where you can enjoy authentic ethnic cuisine. Female cafes owners wear bright national clothes, but are dead against us filming them. Today, the town of Kulbug seems deserted. Local residents are celebrating a wedding near the ancient fortress walls. In high tourist season, the place is totally packed with hundreds of tourists from around the world queuing to inspect the ruins. The city of Kulbug was built on the Great Silk Way in the 9th century AD and became the capital of the historical region of Katlon, part of the Samanid Federation. The southern branch of the Great Silk Way that ran along the banks of the Amudarya River from Temez to Badakhshan was controlled by Katlon rulers. Via this route, the Katlon state exported 3 types of goods to Europe and Asia. The main Katlon's exports were salt, gold and pedigree horses.
самое высококачественное золото в мире.
Here they had mined and are still mining the highest grade gold in the world.
Восточном направлении.
The mine is just 100 kilometers away northeast of here.
Проба золота в мире.
Fast forwarding, we will say that we saw Afghans washing gold with trays right on the banks of the border Panj River with our own eyes.
То, что от него
The ancient myths and legends say about the world's fastest cut-lawn horses. During Kulbug's excavations, they discovered garbage mines in those days unknown in Europe. The city's sewage system was also unique, as wastewater that they accumulated didn't go into rivers but into special treatment ponds. Environmental technologies in the 8th century AD. The residence and steam house of Katlan rulers were heated by the underground heating system. The 20-kilometer long ceramic water pipeline supplied water to the city from the mountain river. The city also had the rain and meltwater withdrawal system. The remains of glass workshops and samples of the thinnest glass were found during the excavations. Kulbug has its own mint. All this suggests the high status of Katlan in the Samanid Empire's political system.
Вот это бассейн на высоте 9 метров над равниной от озера Кайна.
This pool is 9 meters above the plain level.
Ручьевой воды поступила именно здесь. Ну, представьте себе, как...
The water from Lake Kaina, 20 kilometers away, came here.
Да? Чтобы не стать источником инфекции,
When you wash your hands, the water naturally gets dirty.
в караван-сарае был фонтан.
To prevent it becoming a source of infection, from here it was channeled to the fountain in the caravanserai, then filtered and used for irrigation.
Фильтровалось, потом их вместе собрали и использовали для орошения.
The traces of ancient channels are still visible.
По Великой Шелковой пути южная тропа, которая по берегам Амударьи,
The Great Silk Way wasn't used only for trade.
этот караваны
Foreign ambassadors also followed it.
огорчит их.
The Tajik people still have such a proverb: a guest is a gift of God.
Гость – это Божий дар. Хотим, не хотим,
Whether we want it or not, God will send us a gift if we accept a guest.
как мы его воспринимаем, зависит от нашей судьбы. Если мы
Our future depends on how we accept and host you.
прибавляем подарки к нам, если
If we do it with warmth and hospitality, God will give us more gifts. If not, He will give less.
ислам запрещает. Но
What's so important about it, you might ask? You know that Islam forbids alcohol. But Katlan ruler gave permission to have 5 liters of wine for Europeans and 5 for Asians to avoid depriving them of their habits.
не вредит ихнюю привычку.
Thanks to the Great Silk Way, Katlan residents were generating good revenue, so they were far from religious radicalism. It seems fair to say that local residents were developing tourism 8,000 years before this term had even appeared.
Бульбуль – это соловей, а он соловейчик. В нем
Bulbul means nightingale or solovey in Russian.
особого дорогого сейчас показывает
And these are soloveychiki or small nightingales.
телевизионное шоу, которое более выкручивая.
They were used for storing special wine for special VIP guests.
Перемешивает. Вот так-то. Более 1200
Today we see bartenders juggling bottles and making cocktails.
гостей вокруг Казахстана.
1,200 years ago, a concubine beauty poured wine from these narrow-necked pitchers.
На этом кувшинчик, у него узкое горло. Она
Due to it and the vacuum created inside, while pouring, the wine produced this bulbul or glug glug in English musical sound.
вакуум и начинается куль-куль-куль-куль-куль-куль-куль-куль-куль. Для чего вот этот бронзовый лев был использован тогда?
Do you know what they used this bronze lion for?
Внутри его заполняется
They opened its neck and filled it with a disinfecting plant, which Avicenna called not ispan but axorispan, or 1,000 ispans.
испан, а азор испан, 1000 испан. Почему?
A plant that treated 1,000 diseases.
С помощью испан, который лечит.
The burning of this plant produced smoke that came out of ears, eyes, nose and neck.
Вешают у главного портала.
They hanged it at the main building portal so none of the guests entering or leaving the residence could bring any virus inside.
Никакого вируса сюда не притащит.
After the collapse of the Samanid Empire, Katlon became part of the Ghaznavid state and enjoyed vassal dependence rights. The Katlonians paid a small tribute but maintained economic autonomy. The Ghaznavids, descendants of nomadic Turks, adopted and multiplied the urban culture of the Samanids. The Ghaznavid Empire was at its peak during the reign of the Turkic emir Mahmud Ghaznavi, awarded the title of Padishah. At his court, Biruni and Ferdowsi, as well as other outstanding scientists and poets, worked. Science and crafts developed. The Ghaznavids and Karakanids fought minor border wars, but the situation was changed by the Seljukids, descendants of the Turk Seljuk who came from the coast of the Sirdarya. In his youth, Seljuk served in the Samanid army, and in his mature years returned to the banks of the Sirdarya, to his hometown of Gent. The famous Kazakh scientist Karl Bypakov spent several archaeological seasons searching for Gent. According to one version, the town was located 150 kilometers away from Kızılorda. In Gent, Seljuk knocked together a group of strong and brave guys and headed towards adventure in unknown lands. In the 30s of the 11th century, Seljuk's descendants asked the Ghaznavids for land in Khorasan on vassal terms. But in 1040, they rebelled and suddenly defeated the strong Ghaznavid army. The town of Kulburg was completely destroyed, and Katlon ceased to exist as a state entity. Over the next 40 years, the Seljuks conquered Iran, Kurdistan, Khorasan, Baghdad, Armenia, all of Asia Minor, Azerbaijan and Georgia. The Seljuk Empire lasted less than 100 years, but it laid the foundation for the formation of the Ottoman Empire. Modern Turks consider themselves descendants of the Turk Seljuk from the small town of Gent on the banks of the Sirdarya River. Meanwhile, we are passing by the towns of Kulyab and Shurabad and head towards the Panj. Tajik-Afghan border follows the river. We intend to examine the area from the Panj River to the Hazrati Shok range, linking up with the western part of the Davaz range. Famous pathfinders and nature defenders Safullah Madulayev and Ismail Faizov will help us to locate Markoas.
Охота это, смотря если умным его управлять, это хорошо, потому что ради этого мы
Wisely managed, hunting is a good thing.
общественная организация МОФИС. Для того, чтобы вот этот
For this natural wealth to benefit the population, we established the Mukofis Public Organization in 2006.
пользу как раз для населения, чтобы они развивали,
We now have a nice school and a good road.
была школа была хорошо, дорога была хорошо.
All these things, including protecting this redless species, the Markoas, were behind creating this public organization.
Охранять как раз вот этот краснокнижный вид маркуров.
From Tajik, Mukofis translates as protection. The residents of Kimanjor village took up the protection of the adjacent territory. For this, they receive one license for shooting an old, non-reproductive markhor a year. Its average price on the international hunting market is $75,000.
Когда эксперты пришли, один был с Казахстана, эксперт у нас был, вместо института зоологии.
When experts came, there was one from Kazakhstan. His name was Volodya. Together with the Institute of Zoology and Parasitology, we did the counts here. It was sometime in 2006-2007. In the course of 1 month, we were able to register only 4 markhors. Can you imagine? And not a single snow leopard. Then they began protecting this area. Consultations, meetings with border guards and local population, with school children. They explained to them that we have a very rich nature and that it was necessary to protect these animals as our great-grandparents did. According to the latest counts, 400 markhors live on the territory of the Mukofiz public organization, and even 1 snow leopard. We have bears, we have leopards. The markhor population is also growing. Today we have about 400 of them. This very minute, up in the mountains, there is a herd of markhors, about 50 to 60 of them. We'll go there and try filming them. Saifullah Saidulayevich shows us the markhor herd at the mountain top in his binoculars. Vertically, they're about 1 kilometer above us. We could get closer, but the problem is that it's raining and carrying long focus optics in such weather is difficult. We decide to go light and take with us only one simple camera. Despite his age, Saifullah Saidulayevich is easily ascending the mountain, climbing steep slopes with the agility of a snow leopard. We have nothing left to do but try catching up with him. Look, these are wild pomegranates. In the back, on the Afghan side of the border, the peaks of the Safed mountains are gleaming white. And further on we see the Vakan Ridge. Finally, Saifullah Saidulayevich brings us close to the markhor herd, about 400 meters. It's a big distance still, but it's hard getting any closer. It's okay, as it's only the first day of the expedition. We are happy about seeing the mysterious markhors on the very first day. For example, for me personally, it was the first time in my life. Should I make a wish? They say you can't tell anyone about your wish for it to come true, but I will. I want to see and record on video all rare and exotic animals, which are very many in Tajikistan. We still have 2 weeks ahead of us, and we will tell you how we spend them in our next episode.